We're here for Shy and Fearful Behavior Modification / Confidence College. The purpose of tonight's class is so we can increase the welfare and adaptability of the shy and fearful dogs by providing socialization, counter-conditioning, desensitization, and controlled exposure behavior modification. So all of you right now should be like, what in the what did she just say? So these are all the fancy words for the things that we do to help our dogs cope with their environment, okay? So tonight we're gonna talk mostly about alleviating kennel stress. We're going to talk about some of the mental enrichment activities that are options for you. We're going to talk about how to teach dogs to release their anxiety in appropriate ways for the low arousal dog, redirect their inappropriate behavior, learn modified reward systems, and then we'll talk about Confidence College's policies, procedures, and requirements. So this class is set up that everyone who's interested in learning about shy and fearful dogs can learn about the shy and fearful dogs. If you're interested in working on the team where you're actually working with the dogs on the team, Confidence College team, here are your requirements. Dog 101, dog behavior, which you guys should have already had. This class, which is shy and fearful. I believe you have to be 18 to be on the team. And in order to pass, your next step to pass and get into the team is to have a one-on-one working evaluation, and you will also be working with a Confidence College dog at that time. So that's the session where she's going to show you how to read all the paperwork, track everything, and then do the actual hands-on working with the dogs. Why do we need this team? You guys know already that dogs are very, very stressed out when they come here. Some dogs are going to adjust the shelter more easily than others. However, we also get dogs in here that have had a really kind of shady background. We don't always know what their history has been. Sometimes they come from homes where they have been abused. Sometimes they come from hoarding situations. Sometimes we actually know when they come from hoarding situations what their situation was, how many people they interacted with. A lot of them have never been on a leash before. A lot of them from puppy mills have never touched grass before. So anything that's outside of the world that they lived in before is going to be very scary for them, all right? Sometimes we get dogs that come in here that have gone through dominant-based training. So that means that the human themselves had put punishment onto them that frightened them and hurt them. So then they therefore translate that into all humans are going to hurt me. So we've got to help them work through that. Sometimes dogs are just shy because they're shy, just like people. You're going to have different levels of boldness in their environments. And then sometimes we have environmental changes that are just scary for the dogs. So these dogs are going to come into the shelter. They're going to have a whole lot of stress just from being here. They're going to maybe go on the Confidence College team, and then they'll usually rebound pretty quickly after being worked with, or sometimes even go all the way the other way, which we call the mood ring dogs, and they go all the way to Peace Academy right after they get off Confidence College because they just kind of come out of their shell and go a little bit too far. And they're like, woo, this is great, all of a sudden I'm fantastic. Another thing to consider is that dogs have a socialization period from about 3 months of age to 9 months of age. Basically, they need to be having positive experiences in that time frame. If they have negative experiences, they're going to be afraid of that forever, because it's just imprinted in their brains. If they weren't exposed to it, so for example, from age 3 months to 9 months, you keep your puppy in the house and they never meet a man, then when they meet men, they're completely afraid of them because they haven't been exposed to them in that critical time period, okay? Sometimes they'll go through another phase of socialization at 1 year of age for a couple more months, so you do have a little bit of wiggle room if you're getting an older puppy, but sometimes those fear things are very, very deeply ingrained in them. When you took dog behavior class, we kind of talked about how there's an imaginary line where dogs really can't think anymore. They're too excited, they're too stressed out, they're way up here and they're not able to think. So that line is actually called a threshold line. When you have a shy and fearful dog, when they hit that threshold, you're going to see shutting down, freezing, and using calming signals in the dogs. On the other side, the Peace Academy side, the high arousal dogs, they're going to be the ones that are overexcited, jumping, barking, mouthing, pulling on the leash, just outwardly expressing all of their stress. These dogs are equally as stressed. They're just expressing it in different ways, okay? So we're going to show you this short video here on threshold.
Reactive dogs, or dogs who are overly sensitive to their environment, have a threshold for reactivity to different events in their lives. Different events have different thresholds. When the events occur individually, that is, separated by time, the dog can tolerate them and stays under threshold. In this example, the dog is anxious since the dog's person has gone away for a few days. But the dog is able to tolerate it with no reactive outbursts. A few days after the person comes back, the dog meets another dog and shows only a few signs of stress. The next day, the same dog is pat on the head by a child and stays under threshold then as well. Trigger stacking occurs when several events happen close together in time. When combined, they push the dog over the reactivity threshold. If any of these events occur while the dog was suffering from anxiety of the person's absence, the effect adds together and the dog goes over threshold. Any following events send the dog over threshold if they occur close in time to the others. When a dog is stressed, her body produces hormones that help her deal with the situation. Cortisol is one such hormone. Cortisol levels increase each time an event occurs and has a half-life of 70 to 110 minutes. This means it can take 5 to 8 hours for the body to completely remove it. If only a short time goes by between events, hormones from the previous events have not had time to clear and there is an additive effect. That is why over-threshold activity occurs in clusters.
If you think about the life of our shelter dogs, their life starts about 5:30 in the morning. The morning crew comes in. They have these giant machines that spray water everywhere, all over the glass, all over the kennels, all over the floors. It's very loud, very active, and it starts at 5:30 in the morning. The next thing that happens is that the canine comfort team comes in and it's feeding time. So they're getting their kennels clean, they're getting fed, it's very exciting. And then the morning dog walkers come in and that's super exciting. There's only a couple of them, so maybe not everybody gets out. Basically, their whole day is just stress, stress, stress from 5:30 in the morning until we leave. Which is why a lot of our dogs don't do well, for example, on the adoption floor, when they'll do better in the holding areas where there's not as much traffic, okay? However, when we have transfers come in, and there's a whole lot of dogs on the dog holding side, where your shy and fearful dogs are having a terrible day. Because it's tons of traffic, tons of new dogs, tons of people that they don't see normally. They're wearing weird gowns that are all flowy and stuff. And they have no idea what's going on. And all the dogs are stressed out. Now when you look at this chart, it looks kind of scary and crazy. We're gonna look at this side over here. This is kind of the behaviors that we're looking for in identifying what dogs are gonna go on the Peace Academy team. They are getting quiet, they're pulling things into themselves, they're huddling in the back of corners, they're becoming depressed, they don't trust people, okay? They're kind of like the introverted people when they're stressed out, okay? Kind of cuddle into yourself. Now, the Peace Academy high arousal dogs, when they're stressed out, they show us all these where they're restless, impulsive, excited, running all over the place. So they're more like extroverted people, okay? When they're stressed out, they have to get it out of themselves. Does that make sense? So I want to stress that when we're working with our shy and fearful dogs, we are not trying to turn these dogs into somebody that they're not. That is not our goal. We're not trying to make them into extroverted dogs. What we're trying to do is move them up here. This is how an introverted dog is appropriately reacting to their environment. We're just trying to give them coping skills that will work for their temperament. Okay? We love our shy and fearful dogs. We don't want them to change into a dog they're not. Other things we're gonna see, you know, they're gonna be afraid of a lot of different things. They're not all gonna be afraid of the same things. A lot of them are afraid of people. A lot of them are afraid of men, which is why we really need men on the team to help them. Some of them are afraid of leashes. Some of them are afraid of kennels, because they've never been in a kennel. They're usually not gonna give us any kind of eye contact. So when we talk about dog behavior class and the first thing you teach is the look, this is not the first thing you teach to shy and fearful dogs, because this is going to be one of the hardest things for them, is to look you in the eye. We're going to see this huddled posture that we see here. Crouch down, We're gonna have like bent elbows, bent knees. We got little scared eyes there. And they're usually gonna be recoiled in the back of that kennel. Sometimes we'll get shine fearful dogs that will be more barky at dangers, okay, or growly. This is to help us understand a little bit more what it's like to be a shine fearful dog in a stressful environment. So this is pretend this is you, okay? This green area out here is when you become aware that someone is in your environment and that you should pay attention to them. So you drive into a parking lot at the grocery store, you see someone on the other end of the parking lot and you're like, oh, there's a person over there. No big deal, right? Person way over there. They're just in my awareness range, okay? As this person starts walking closer to you, they get into your yellow zone where you're like, oh, are they coming like right for me? Because now I'm feeling a little bit uncomfortable, and you're kind of starting to think about what do I have on me in case this person's coming right at me, right? And you're like, well, I've got my purse and I've got this bag of groceries with milk in it, and I could probably, you know, do one of these numbers with the bag of milk, or I have my cart and I can do one of those shin rams because those suckers hurt, and maybe throw the cart and then run to my car, and you've got your keys out, you know, and you're putting them between your fingers like, I'm gonna do one of those ninja moves. And so you're prepared mentally for defending yourself. That's what happens in this yellow zone. This red zone is where you are now in defensive mode of, now I'm ramming you with my cart because you're way too close to me, okay? Now, the reason these are kind of moving and adjusting is because my zones might be different than everybody else's zones in this room. Some people get nervous at this distance. Some people get nervous when they're this close. Like, oh, yeah, Deb, you can walk all the way to here, and I'm not nervous until you're right here and like, hi, how are you? Okay? Other people are like, oh, 20 feet away, that's my comfort zone. Does that make sense? Not only that, but depending on the amount of stress I've had today, or the encounters I've already had today, like if I was in a car accident earlier in the day and you're driving along and someone's coming up in the lane, right? You might have been fine yesterday until that car was right next to you, like, oh, stay on your lane, right? But after you have a car accident, as soon as they're anywhere near you, you're like slamming on the brakes and you're switching lanes, like, no, right? So remember that these things are adjusting constantly. If you interacted with a dog yesterday and they were fine with you putting your hand all the way up to their chin or their chest, and then the next day they're acting like you're gonna kill them, don't take it personally. Remember, there's a ton of other things that happened to them that day, okay? This is a very fluid thing for a lot of dogs. In dog behavior class, we kind of talked about a couple of these. I wanted you guys to see for yourselves what the stress escalation ladder looks like. All dogs are gonna start throwing signals like way down here at the bottom of the stress ladder, with the exception of dogs that were punished for showing these behaviors. They will skip them, okay? So if you punish a dog for growling, like saying, hey, I'm nervous, so I'm growling at you. If you punish your dog for growling at you, they're gonna quit growling and they're just gonna go to biting because they think you don't like that stage, right? They've been told that they get punished for that. Does that make sense? But most of the time we're gonna go up this ladder. When the stress starts to decrease, we're gonna go right back down the ladder. Okay. So these guys are the dogs that are like shaking from adrenaline, right? All their little muscles are kind of quivering like they're freezing cold. Now with these dogs, what we want to do is wrap them up, cuddle them, tell them everything's gonna be okay. It's actually not great for a dog that has all that adrenaline to tell them they can't move, okay? Their muscles are shaking to get the adrenaline out of their body. The best thing for them to do is actually walk so that they can walk out the adrenaline instead of just shaking, okay? Shaking off when they're not wet, so that's this one right here. This is a very common one when they're coming back down from a stressful experience. So when I was a vet tech, we'd have the dog up on the table, giving the shots, doing the nail trim, checking the ears, put the dog down. First thing the dog does when it hits the ground, shake off. Because it's like, whew, gotta get that out of my system. They will also do this little shake off when they're in a dog-to-dog play group to let the other dog know, like, oh, I'm gonna chill this out a little bit. It's fine, we're still playing, it's cool. You'll see a lot of sweaty paw pads, so they're leaving little paw prints all over the place. Their pupils might dilate. If their eyes are really, really dark, this is probably pretty hard to see because you shouldn't be staring at their eyeballs, all right? They're leaving their coat everywhere, so you take them to the vet and you leave half your dog in the room. Stress shedding. They do a licking of the air, which is this guy right here. So this is more than just the lip lick. This is like a constant licking motion of the air, okay? When they're stress licking, their tongue goes out and up over their nose. When they're licking because something's delicious, they lick their whole mouth. So anything that's just the tip of their nose is stress licking. They'll do this hypervigilant thing, so it's like they're paying attention to everything, you know, like everything, 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 everything. And they may or may not have raised hackles. Now, please keep in mind that hackles raising, like this dog right here and this dog right here, this is a completely involuntary response in their body. It can mean that they're stressed. It can mean that they're super excited that there's another dog to play with, okay? So it's not always a bad thing, but it can be. Another stress symptom is actually stress panting. When you have a dog that's happy panting, the tongue should be kind of loose, like this guy here, loose and floppy, right? Falling off the side of the teeth, you can see teeth, everything's fine, okay? The stress panting looks like these guys. You've got a stiff tongue, you don't see a lot of teeth because the mouth is tight and kind of up over the teeth, and the tongue is tight over the top of the teeth. Okay? The other thing you look for is kind of the corners of the mouth. How much skin do you have curled up around here? Or if it's forward and stressed out. Okay? Because a stressed out dog will kind of pull their muscles in their mouth forward, and relaxed dogs will have big relaxed cheeks. Okay? Now this part right here, where the tongue is kind of curling up, sometimes little dogs, when they're really hot, will curl their tongues up. So this tongue is not always an indicator of stress or no stress. And then once we get past those stress reactions, you're getting an avoidance behavior. So this is probably what you're gonna see a lot of when you're working with shy and fearful dogs, because you're starting to get infringing on their space. So you're coming in their yellow zone and their red zone, and they're starting to freak out, okay? So the first thing that they're gonna wanna do is avoid whatever it is. They don't want to attack you. They're not attacking until they're in that red zone. They're trying to get you in that yellow zone to back off of them, or, you know, quit being so scary, whatever it is you're doing that's scaring them, okay? So with this, you're gonna have turning away or looking away. So if you're reaching for a dog and they're moving their head away, as soon as they start turning that head, you're too close. You gotta back off. This picture here of this dog, do you see how he's trying to pull away, giving a little sideways glance to this baby? This dog is terrified of this little baby hugging him. If you're getting to this, where you're reaching over a dog and their whole body and shoulders are moving away from you, you're super close to a bite right here, because you're in that dog's red zone right now. This dog right here is trying to avoid both of these German Shepherds that are trying to box him in. They're showing the same signals they would show to other dogs to us. Now, the important thing to remember about avoidance behavior is that avoidance behavior is always the correct response. We want them to show us avoidance behaviors and not growling, biting, lunging, or any of those other scary things, right? We want them to say, hey, you're kind of freaking me out, so that we can go, oh, okay, this is where you're freaking out. We'll back off. So we're never punishing them for this, and we're never ignoring this and keeping going. We see this, we back up a step or two. The next stage, and this is the stage right before biting, is the focus and freeze. With this behavior, the dogs literally look like they have pushed paws on them. So they're panting, okay, they're doing their stress panting, and they're breathing really fast, and then all of a sudden they're like, their mouth is gonna close, they're gonna pretty much stop breathing, and they're just gonna freeze, like someone hit pause, and then they're gonna start panting again, okay? When this happens, the mouth is gonna close and go forward, the eyes are probably gonna open up a little bit, okay? You might see the whites of some eyes, the ears are usually back, But see, all these dogs have really closed mouths. If you don't listen to them and you keep going, then they have no choice but to bite or lunge at you. And you'll see this stuff. And if you're ever to this point, you've gone way, way too far. One thing to caution in terms of how we're interacting with our dogs, just like we talked about in dog behavior class, if you're bending over a dog, you are frightening the dog, especially a shy and fearful dog. We are never ever bending over a dog, even to give that dog a treat. If we're giving the dog a treat, we are bending from the knees, and we are keeping our back straight and not hovering over that dog. So what does that mean for this guy right here? Okay, well, he's trying to do the right thing. He's getting down lower, so the dog isn't quite as scared. But the problem is his body, remember his ankle to the back of his neck angle that we talked about in dog behavior? His angle is way too far forward. The other thing that he's doing is that he's trying to be kind of sideways to the dog. And what I mean by that is, if I'm staring at you head on, this is my whole body coming at you. With the shy and fearful dogs, we're doing this. So you're seeing this side. He should be actually turned more, so he's not facing that dog. He should be turned more. He should have his back completely straight up and down. If you're down on the ground with the shy and fearfuls, remember we're going straight down, and we have a straight line from the back of our ankles to the back of our heads, okay? And we are working with the dogs to the side, like this, all right? We're not looking directly at the dog, but we are keeping the dog in our side vision. Here are a few other rude things that humans do to dogs and other animals. Humans are the only species that show teeth to each other in a pleasant way. Most other species show teeth as a form of aggression. So us smiling, not really helping the dog. So keep the lips closed. If you have to smile at a dog, and I know that you all do have to smile at the dog, keep your lips closed so that they don't see your teeth. Coming in for the hug, terrible. This dog is terrified because you're in their personal space. You can see the dog's trying to pull away from her. Patting dogs on the head is kind of a rude gesture. If you guys have ever seen two young dogs playing with each other, and the one dog kind of goes up and they rear up and they whack the other one on top of the head, very rude play behavior. When we're patting dogs on the head, like, oh, good boy, we're just basically being a really rude baby dog, whacking them on the head. Reaching over the head at any point in time is also very scary for these dogs. Now, the problem is that when you leash up a dog, all of you, I bet, are going right over the dog's head. I bet that you're holding the top of that loop. Okay, so the big part of the loop is down here, and you're holding it on the leash where the buckle is, right? And you usually dip it under their chin and go over their heads. You're gonna have to learn a new leashing technique for shy and fearful dogs. You're gonna have to learn how to go from the side and not over their heads, okay? This can also be very difficult when you're taking leashes off of shy and fearful dogs, because most of us grab right on the back of their head and we pull to loosen it and yank it off the front of their head. Terrifying for shy and fearful dogs. So not only are they terrified, but your arm is right by their mouth. So it's kind of dangerous for you as well. Now this does take a bit of work. It's like learning to lasso a little bit, I think. You gotta learn a little wrist action to get it over there, but there is a way to do it. The other thing that's rude is walking head onto a dog. If you ever watch dogs when they greet each other, they don't walk nose to nose unless the one dog is trying to be super mean to the other one. They actually come in from the side, and even not super friendly dogs go sniff the neck like this. Super social dogs will go butt to nose right away to introduce themselves. So when we walk straight up to a dog, we're being intimidating and scary. We should be walking kind of like in an arc so that we're approaching the dog kind of like this from the side instead of head on. All right, and then the last thing is that we pet them when they're sniffing us. So sniffing in cats and dogs is the same. Sniffing is an investigation and not an invitation for you to pet them. Sniffing is how dogs understand who you are, figure out who they are. It's not saying like, hey, do you want to touch me? If they want to be petted, they're going to nuzzle your hand, they're going to do all sorts of other signals. But the sniffing should just be sniffing and you're not moving. All right. So here we're going to show you guys a video. This is Georgie Porgy. We want you guys to see how many stress behaviors you see in this video. We'll play it twice. Okay, what'd you guys see?
Lip licking.
Yes.
Crouching, slinking.
Okay.
Tail was under.
Okay.
Ears are down.
Ears are down.
Ignore the treats.
Ignoring treats. Everybody always misses one. Okay. We also saw the beginning and in the middle. Okay, so we've got a little bit of the whites of the eyes. There's your lip licking. Okay, and then we've got the right paw. Right front paw is about to lift. Okay, there's your stress lift. Tail down, and there's some poop. Okay, now we've got sniffing, so trying to distract. Hypervigilance, lip licking, crouching in the back of the kennel, not giving eye contact, and then finally like, oh, are you still here?
So when the dog sniffs, he's trying to distract himself?
Yeah, so it's one of those displacement behaviors that we talked about. You know, humans that kind of like tap their pin or shake their foot as a displacement behavior, bite their nails. They're basically doing the same thing. Everybody kind of has a little displacement behavior thing. Okay, some people just like twiddle their thumbs or whatever. So the dog, yeah, is doing one of those things where it's like, oh no, I meant to come over here and like sniff this, right? Okay. Facebook, I use Facebook as a displacement behavior all the time. You're standing in line and you're like super uncomfortable and there's all those people you don't know. And I pull out my phone and I pretend like I'm checking some messages. Like nobody has messaged me in the last 5 seconds. But I'm like, I better check just in case, right? That's a displacement behavior for me because I can't get out of that line and out of all those people and out of that confined environment.
So my name's Sam and I am a volunteer here at Wayside. I am the Confidence College lead volunteer and I've been on the team since its inception, but I guess I just didn't realize how long ago that actually was. We've had hundreds of dogs come through our Confidence College program and most have done super, super well. It is absolutely my passion to work with these shy and fearful dogs. I wish I could do this for my job full time. I love it. It's super rewarding and it can also be super hard. So when we work with our shy and fearful dogs, we do what we call slow and low training, and that's exactly what it sounds like. We go slowly with them, we get down low, we come in sideways like Jen was showing you. No direct eye contact, which can be challenging and intimidating to a shy and fearful dog. Watching our body language, making sure again that we're coming sideways. It helps to have a relaxed and calm energy. They really do feed off your energy. If you're in a hurry, if you're stressed, if you had a rough day and you come in and you're all stressed and the dog's already stressed, you know, it's not going to be so helpful. If you can take some time to calm yourself before you go in to work with that dog, that can be helpful. Calming signals, you're going to see them doing some licking and yawning, and a great thing to do is to do those things back to them. If they're licking their lips at you and you mirror that and lick your lips back, it kind of shows that you're not a threat. Same with yawning. If they keep yawning at you, you can yawn back at them and mirror that behavior. It shows that you're not a threat. And working in small increments. That's one of the hardest things to do is you want to rush the dog. You want the dog to feel better. But we really have to make sure that we're going slow, going at their pace, and just celebrating all those teeny tiny successes. If yesterday the dog wouldn't come out of the kennel at all, and today it'll put 2 paws out of the kennel, that's a huge success. You can stop right there and feel like you made a big improvement that day. Training can go small. So we have lots of things that we do with our shy and fearful dogs, and one of the first things we do with some of the dogs is called 2-4-6-8. If the dog is still too fearful and we're not going in the kennel with them yet, we open the kennel. It's literally what it sounds like. We open it 2 inches at first and we sit outside the kennel and kind of let that dog get comfortable and used to us, and if that goes okay, then you open it 4 inches and then 6 and then 8. Kind of ignoring the treat so far. So I've just got it open like the 2 inches. Ah, there we go. So I kind of see that she's interested, she's taking the treats. Sometimes it's hard to do 2, 4, 6, 8 because some of them want to bolt. So you do kind of have to know the dog and be careful. Make sure that you position yourself so that you're blocking the door. Sometimes it depends on how their directives, which we'll talk about in a little bit, are marked, what steps that dog is at. If they're only marked for 2, 4, 6, 8, I wouldn't go in at all. But if it's 2, 4, 6, 8, and then if they're comfortable go in, then we can do that. So the next step then is entering the kennel. So sometimes their next step is to socialize them in the kennel. We don't take them out yet. I feel like these need music or something. We need some.
Yeah, you should jazz these up.
We need some background. We probably should reshoot some of them. They're pretty old. Now going in sideways, going in slow, tossing some treats. And then once we get in there, we can sit down, go low, kind of toss some treats sideways, kind of let the dog decide how close they want to come. Some dogs will take the tossed treats right away, some of them won't. You toss all kinds of treats and then as soon as you leave, they get up and they gobble them all up. Okay, so counter conditioning is kind of the fancy word for teaching a dog, reteaching a dog to have a pleasant feeling or reaction towards something that they were fearful of or they didn't like. Like that. That could be very scary to a lot of our shy and fearful dogs. So we do that by associating something that the thing that the dog was scared of with something that the dog likes. Usually treats, but not always. It can be a toy, it can even be attention or affection, depending on the dog. So say the dog is scared of the car, getting in the car, you could sort of gradually reteach them the car is a good thing by they touch the car and they get a treat. They touch the car and they get a treat, so it becomes a little less scary. Sadly, a lot of our shy and fearful dogs are scared of people. They're scared of humans in general. So we have to kind of reteach them that when a person comes by, it's not a big scary thing, it's a good thing. People come, I get treats. And that's where we do treats from the sky. Oh, and a leash. A lot of our shy and fearful dogs are scared of the leash. So we have to do the same thing, that counter conditioning that makes the leash not so scary. We usually start by laying it on the ground, putting treats all around it, letting the dog sniff the leash. Of course, our slip leads here smell like 100 other dogs. And so they are pretty willing to come and sniff the leash. Once you start to pick it up, that's a different story. So intro the leash is a step also that we work on with the dogs.
Yeah, and this video is covering days of work.
Yes, yes, yes. So that's usually how we start. We just lay it down, we put the treats around it. Sort of slowly lift it and see. Ah, she wants a treat. Then pick up the leash and she's gone. Some later, kind of try again. And she's gone.
So just like when we're training our other behaviors, if it's too much, we go back and we do those baby steps. So if lifting the leash a foot off the ground is too much, then you go back the next time and you just lift it an inch off the ground and put it back down. And then you go 2 inches and 4 inches until you're able to get it up.
Now she's more interested in sniffing the leash itself.
with the leash? Is that just because they're shy and fearful, or somebody?
I think that sometimes they've never seen one or they've never, you know, you're picking it up and trying to put it around them. They've never been on a leash before.
Okay.
We do the O, kind of luring them through the leash a lot too, kind of make the big O and put a treat through it and kind of let them leash themselves, and then keep it very, very loose. They don't tighten it. I wouldn't take her out that day at all. And like Jen said, that would be probably over several sessions. That's one of the biggest issues with a lot of our fearful dogs is a leash.
We had somebody either here recently or still does, and we use a collar because they don't like it.
They don't like the slip lead.
Yeah.
And of course then, but the shy and fearfuls, if you have the collar, you have to be super vigilant that they don't back out of it. And so if you try to harness, and a lot of them do not like, you know, that's a lot of touching for a shy dog to get underneath their belly to clip a harness. So that can be kind of an issue too. We have a greenie right now who's supposed to have a harness, and man, he does not want you touching under his belly. It scares him. So it's been a challenge for him. Some of the dogs, once they do go outside, they get very scared to go through doorways. Doorways are a big thing with a lot of shy and fearful dogs. So it can be a little bit of an ordeal sometimes to get them to come through the doors. And again, we use a lot of treats. We use a lot of hot dogs. And this was really not the best door for us to choose because it doesn't hold open. So I had to kind of prop the door open and try to lure her through the door.
And what is it that makes them so scared of the door?
You know, I think sometimes it's a texture change between one floor and the other floor. Sometimes it looks like it's going to close on them. You know, I don't always know.
Sometimes the glass is reflective, especially in the front doors where it's really sunny.
Sometimes they have certain doors that they will go in. Some of our greenies, our shy and fearful dogs, will come in one door outside but not another door. So when we're working with them, what we want to do is build their confidence. Like Jen said, we're not trying to turn them into extroverted dogs or dogs that they're not. We just want them to be more confident versions of themselves. So we can do different things to help build that confidence, play some games, tug of war, 6 Interesting Things, which is just a game where you bring in different things that they can sniff from outside. It can be your keys, it can be a stick, just to kind of get their brains going and thinking about something besides how scared they are. The touch game.
Touch now is when we're touching them anywhere on their body.
Right.
So if they're scared of you touching them like around their shoulder or on their back or near their neck where their collar would be.
Yes.
We warn them now with touch.
So now it's the target game, which is just to have them touch their nose to your hand and then they get a treat. And that's usually one of the first things we work on with the shy and fearfuls. Rather than the look, we work on that target. So they kind of get more comfortable touching you. They come to you and touch you. The Zen game, which is very similar, taking them to the agility park if you have had that class and you're cleared to go to the agility park. Working on agility, a lot of our Confidence College dogs love the agility park. It really does make their brains kind of work and refocus them. Those little brain games like we have in the socializer room where you can hide the hot dogs and the treats and they have to open and do the little puzzles are great for them. And time in the socializer room because it's made to be sort of like a home environment. And some of these dogs have never lived in a home. A lot of our shy and fearful dogs are from a hoarding situation or they were outside dogs. They were running loose on our farm their whole lives. They don't know anything about living in a house. So if you can take them to that room, that's a great place for them. You can play some music, you can get up, walk around, do the dishes. There's a couch in there, so they can kind of get a little bit of a feel for what it's like to be in a home. And you make sure that you're only rewarding them when they do what you've asked or they're showing a positive behavior. As hard as it is, we don't want to coddle them when they're scared. We don't want to reward them for being fearful. We just kind of want to build their confidence and get them back up and moving. And the roll over, the showing of the belly, is one of those things. Some dogs, they roll over, they want you to pet their belly. Shy and fearful dogs tend to do that to show you that they're not a threat. They're being submissive, they're saying, don't hurt me, I'm not a threat to you. And instead of petting them and loving on them at that time, we kind of want to get them up and moving again. You're okay, come on, let's go. And get them moving before you give them lots of attention. Kind of positive and upbeat. Other things we can do is just basic training like we do with any other dog. Training them to sit, down, stay. All of those are great things to build their confidence and makes them more adoptable, of course. Adopters love it when they can do all of those things. And just being careful when you are doing your training that, again, you're not looming over the dog or kind of scaring it, but do that straight posture like Laura's doing down there on the bottom. I think that's Candy up on top there. Getting the dog's focus, but a nice tall, not where this guy's kind of bending over, you can see that dog is kind of scared. And if you do foster a shy and fearful dog, there are definitely things to know. You need to prepare your family and friends that this dog might not want a lot of attention. They might not want to come out, and that's okay. To not force the interactions. Prepare your house. Sometimes the baby gate in front of the front door can be helpful because some shy and fearful dogs are door darters and they can take off. And if a shy and fearful dog gets loose, they are very, very hard to get back. Safe car trip home. Make sure, again, that you go all the way into the garage, close the door before you open the car door in case they bolt. Letting them have their own space. And this can be hard. I fostered lots of shy and fearful dogs, and some of them want to be like under the bed, and they want to stay under the bed. And it's like day 4 and they're still under the bed. You're like, okay, well now maybe I need to start, encouraging them to come out a little bit more. Definitely in the beginning, let them have their safe place. And then if you're feeling like maybe you need to move them a little farther along, I would talk to the behavior team and see what they would recommend doing. Safety gear on the dog, the harness, if they'll tolerate it. It's okay if they don't eat for a few days, that's very normal. It's okay if they hide for a few days, that's very normal, under the bed. There's sights and sounds in your home that are very scary to the dog that you would not even think of. Garbage disposal can be terrifying. Garage door going up and down, things that they've never heard. If they've been a farm dog or a hoarding dog, they've never heard those things before. People love to do that. They want to take them, they want to show them off, but especially with those shy and fearful dogs. I mean, any dog needs time to get used to you in the home before you're taking them out everywhere, but especially the shy and fearful ones. It's often not a fun trip for them. Other helpful things, dog parks. It can be very hard to get a shy and fearful dog back if they run. So with our dogs here, our shy and fearful dogs, we don't typically take the Confidence College dogs to the dog park, the small dog park, because they can run and it's hard to get them back. We can use the agility park if you've been trained there. It's much smaller. Don't force interactions. Let the dog come to you, like we've talked about. Sometimes you want to be the one to make the breakthrough with the dog. So you've read all the logs, all the sheets, and nobody can get this dog to let them pet them, and you're like, this dog is I'm gonna be the one. I'm gonna come in today, and this dog is gonna let me pet it. But don't do that. Let them come in at their own pace. Don't force that interaction. Different rewards. Some dogs, treats are the best thing ever. Some toys are the best thing ever. Some want to play. So kind of finding out what they're most willing to work for, what they get most excited about. Being careful with your timing, that you're rewarding exactly what you want to reward. Giving a home adjustment period. If you're fostering them, you know that it's going to take them a little while to feel comfortable, and all progress is progress. Tiny progress is progress, and celebrate that. Special notes for Confidence College volunteers. These dogs cannot be discussed on the Facebook Dog Socializer page until they are completely available. We do have our own behavior modification page, which has Confidence College and Peace Academy on it. So that's where we kind of talk about the dogs. And those pages stay pretty busy. We kind of like to share how the dogs are doing and photos. It's a sensitive position. It can be very, very rewarding. However, it can also be very hard. Sometimes the dogs just are not making progress and they are just deeply unhappy, then euthanasia might be the result. And that has happened, and it's always very, very hard. But sometimes they cannot overcome the fear that has been put into them, and they're miserable. It doesn't happen very much, but it does happen, and it's always hard. But you can always discuss that with any of the managers or the behavior team. I know, it's not a very fun thing to talk about. It's always very sad. Okay, questions?
What's the need? Is it greater in just dog socializing or in confidence college?
Both. Most people do both. So if you come in to socialize dogs and you say have a couple hours to spend, if you want to walk a few dogs and then check in and see, sometimes we have like 2 or 3 confidence college dogs, and you can look on the sheet. If they've already been worked with twice that day, then they're probably good. Sometimes we have like 10 confidence college dogs, and then you can check and see, oh my gosh, nobody's worked with them today. So you kind of balance back and forth and see what you think is going to be the best use of your time that day. And if they've just been worked with, if you get here and you're ready to work with the conference college dogs and someone was just in there, usually they need a break. That's too much for them. So go do something else for a little while first.
What's a typical range, and I know each dog is different, for the amount of time that the program might take?
I'd say the shortest is maybe a week, and the longest has been months. It has been. And
at least a week.
Yes, yeah.
Really quick.
Yes, and the ones who tend to move the fastest tend to be the owner surrenders, who weren't super shy and fearful until they got here, and it's just shelter shock, and it takes them. We have one of those right now too. It takes them some time to get over being scared of being here. They tend to move the fastest, and the slowest ones tend to be puppy mill and like hoarding dogs and the dogs who've never been around people. That's the hardest one. They're very, some of the shy and fearfuls are terrified of the shelter, but they love people, and those usually move faster. And some are terrified of people, and that's the hard one. Those are the hard ones. Yeah. Anybody else? Okay, if you are interested on being on Conference College team, I'll give you my email, and you can email me, and we can set up a time. I'm mostly here on the weekends during the school year, as I teach. We can set up a time to meet and kind of go through the one-on-one, and we'd love to have people on the team, especially people who can come during the week, which is not to say we still need people weekends too, but some weekdays our greenies don't get worked with at all.